why don't you start?
Okay, all right, well, I'm gonna do like super brief kind of bio. I started out as a K-12 art teacher, and when I had my own children, I just realized that I wanted to put my energy towards them, and the classroom didn't really feel like a good fit for me anymore, but I still wanted art as a part of my life. And I started painting, and as my children have grown and my art has grown, it's become a full-time job for me. And
Great.
That brings us to today.
Yes. My name's Lelia, and I have a varied background, but my first degree was in biology and nursing, and I'm actually still a nurse today. But art has always been a huge part of my life, and I decided to start pursuing my MFA in 2013. And so I take one class every semester, and I should graduate in 2023. But I love it. It really it challenges me, and it was just always a dream of mine, so I'm glad that I finally got to do it. So Shannon and I became friends through art, really. She was my first and only artist friend for a while. And we started going on hikes together, and the conversations were just magical, just as we would take in everything that we saw and then turn it into a composition. While we're standing there, would you use this? I would use that. Would you? Yeah. And so we knew right away that we needed to work together, and so we did one show prior to this, and then right away we wanted to do it again. So we came up with the theme behind this show while we were on a hike. Of course, it actually took about 3 hikes, I think, to nail it down. Yeah.
I think it was about this time last year that we were like, okay.
Yeah.
I still remember the conversation. I can remember we were up on Columbine.
Yeah.
Mid-Columbine in Cheyenne Canyon. Actually, Joseph, I was thinking all about you were talking in here about how you're getting so much inspiration from hiking. I'm like, oh, this is like leads right into us.
Yes, exactly.
But I still remember making that turn coming back up Mid-Columbine, and I was like, yes, okay, we have a lot to explore here.
Right.
Our conversations both in a conceptual way of the essence of things and our surroundings, but also in kind of the spiritual way, and not only that concept, but also the look and the feel of exploring that in the visual format.
Right.
Something that just became really apparent to us, and it did grow. Like when I think we talked to Abby originally, where you talked to her, it was in its kind of infant stages, and it evolved. On its own. Yeah,
it did. So the idea behind the show is capturing the essence of nature, or anything really. A tree, flowers, a person, whatever it is that you connect to. So it's the truth in you, in yourself, connecting with the truth in another thing, another object, or just the feeling. My paintings are basically all feelings. Which is why they're titled with one word, and generally they're kind of like action feelings, and basically when I found a scene that I really connected with, I tried to identify what it was that was connecting me to it, like what truth in that scene was connecting to my spiritual truth. And that's what I painted. So, for example, in Reset, which is right back there. Yes, thank you. That was a view I had in a forest. The light was coming through as a late afternoon sun. And the feeling I had right then was one of being reset. It was the end of the day. I just needed a deep breath. Reset, and I actually didn't even think of that word. My son named that. And then the one next to it, similarly, it's actually out in the mountains, and the end of the day skiing. Sometimes I go in early and I take the dogs for a walk. And then I pick everyone up when they're done. I can only take so much cold. And the sun coming through the trees and late afternoon sun and the reflections on the snow, it just grabs, I mean, basically the idea of it is it just grabs me by the heart, and I just have to take a picture, and I'm already painting in my head, while I'm taking the picture, and then get it on canvas as quick as I can.
I love that one in particular. That might be one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I love how it looks cold.
Yes.
You can tell it's the snow, but at the same time you get that warm
Yes.
glow of
Yes.
you just know the sun's going down.
Right. Oh, well, thank
You
you.
taught me so much about
yes.
color.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, not to do the same thing, but my favorite one of yours is this one. Can you tell us about that one?
Sure. Yeah. So this is Lunaria, and Lunaria is the scientific name for money plant or honesty plant. I think we've probably all seen them in like Hobby Lobby or whatever it is in the dried naturals section. But they're these really unique. They look kind of like silver dollars, and I think with this one, as in a lot of my paintings in this series, I'm trying to. Seeds have become like this common thing that's come up for me. But capturing both the kind of death of something and then the life in the life cycle of plants. This plant is fading. These are starting to dry out, and a lot of these all had seeds at one point, but a lot of them have dropped out. You can kind of see the seeds have already dropped out, but these are just still present in these ones. But so there's kind of, I think Lelia took this. Well, let me back up. I love how we both had this common theme of essence, and I love my daughter Bella is my muse, but she said you're painting the soul of things.
Yes.
Which I just was like, I kind of held on to that,
Yeah.
and I love that, and I see that so much in your landscape art. But we have such different styles, and I love how we approached it. The same thing so differently.
Yeah.
And I think the way that my art, even though it started a little different, the way that it finally came full circle was this life cycle of plants. And both from the start of things, the seed, seedlings, that first growth, to kind of the end of the cycle with the bearing of the seeds, and then the dropping and the kind of death that comes along with that. I feel like I'm just rambling.
No,
on.
You're on a hike with us. This is
what we do, and then we'll take a break. We need a water break, and we'll breathe for a little while. And then we're like, where were we?
Right.
Oh yeah. So anyway, I think that the capturing that the life cycle and the hope, really, that even within like the death and the end of a cycle, there's this passing on of the seed of a next generation of life, which plays out in the life cycle of plants, and we see it in the forest, we see it on the smaller micro level of seeds, and then in us, in our human lives and experience. And I think that as these creatures that we all are, in life and part of nature, that we have those shared things. And I think that's why our hikes were so inspirational to us, because we were just in it and saw that, and then saw how it mirrored our own lives.
Right.
And we were like, oh, we just have to capture this.
Right. One of the initial ideas that we had was about a chrysalis and the idea of metamorphosis. And we talked about how each of us were going through so many changes in the past few years, and we're talking about how everybody needs a stage where they're cocooning, and a stage of solitude to reconnect with their soul and their essence. And I think that's what ended up growing from. That's how essence grew out of that. Just the reconnection with the knowing within yourself, which is how I define essence,
For sure.
And knowing that you're born complete, you're born with everything you need. You don't need to be anything more. And that's something I have to remind myself on a regular basis. So I think that's why I connected with that too.
Yeah, you remind me of that. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's one of the reasons we connected so
Right.
much and through our art.
Right.
Um,
And so actually, Shannon and I painted the same photo, and it's of a seedling. And so hers is right here, painted in like perfect Shannon style, just like absolutely realistic and incredibly accurate. And mine, yeah, sure, yeah. And then
touch your art.
you can touch my art. And then I did mine in Lelia style and, you know, bright colors, but it's basically, I mean, we just wanted to, our interpretation of what it meant to be born complete. And the seedling has everything it needs. So
yeah,
that's kind of the piece that we wanted to do something collaborative,
Mhm.
and it ended up being this one, so.
yeah. Do you have a favorite that you created?
Oh, of mine?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. They're all my babies.
Yeah. Asking which child is your favorite?
Yes, which child? Okay, can I do two?
Yes.
Okay.
I will allow it.
They're similar, they're cousins.
Okay.
Okay, so I think this one is probably my favorite, and it's titled Serenity. I absolutely love to use the contrasting colors, so aquas and corals or purples and golds, you know, that one over there. And so this one I wanted to show kind of like a dreamscape below the forest, and just the idea of life within the forest and the light within that life. The energy that I feel when I'm hiking and among the trees, I feel like that painting embodies it almost perfectly. So in that sense, that one's my favorite. And then just real quick, this one is also one of my favorites too. Similar in that, you know, we've got the life below, and then the energy coming up, and then the reflection down below. I like this one too because of the reflection, and kind of the repetition of the life within the forest being reflected into the water and all the different elements. So, and of course the colors. So
Reflections are hard too, just
Yeah.
technically speaking.
Yes.
They're really hard to create.
Yes, they
You
are.
did a
thank you.
brilliant job.
Thank you. What about you?
You know, it's interesting because most of the work I created for the show is more botanical based, which I really enjoy. There was a time that I was pretty much strictly a figurative painter. I have one more, both Lily and I have a few more pieces in back, but I only had two figurative paintings for this show. The one that's out here is this one here, called The Coral, the King, and the Cradle. And it's actually my daughter, Bella, who has modeled for me for a long time. But, you know, just the way, you know, my art really imitates my own life, and it's really a source of therapy for me, I mean, to be completely honest. So whatever I'm dealing with emotionally comes out in my artwork. And for a while, figurative painting didn't feel right for me. It felt so vulnerable and personal. And I started this painting really before we had really even landed on that we were going to create the show together. And I had to set it aside. I didn't know how to finish it. So it was like half finished for almost a year. And then I picked it back up just a couple months ago and was able to really finish it and work it out. So this one to me represents kind of a culmination of a lot of different ideas, both the past as a figurative painter, my present is kind of working the idea of essence through the botanical. And it is very personal, just the concept behind it, which, you know, how many hours do you guys have? I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but I think that technically speaking, this was such a big learning for me and involved a lot of risk for me. And it's such a wonderful thing. So Joseph, you shared a lovely miracle story. And I have a little bit in my own way of a miracle. So for this painting, the last layer of it was these kind of light flares coming down. And I knew I wanted to add that. I love that photographic kind of anomaly that happens. And I'm like, I want to incorporate that into this painting. It really needs that, both conceptually and visually, needs that extra layer. And I didn't know if I could do it. I was kind of intimidated. And so I was working one afternoon in my studio, and the beautiful sunlight was coming through the window. And I was like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm either going to destroy this painting or it's going to work and it's going to be complete. And as I'm working on it, adding in the light, the sun was shining through my studio window, and I have a crystal prism hanging in my window. And the light was shining perfectly through it, and it was casting rainbows on this painting, directly in line with the actual light flares I was trying to create. It was one of those like, felt divine. Yes, totally. It felt divine, and it felt like such a gift, and it just was so beautiful and wonderful. It was kind of one of those times that you feel like you're jumping into this river that's there, this kind of creative consciousness, and felt like I was a part of that, and it felt like such a divine gift, and so that is meaningful to me.
Yeah, and Shannon texted Abby and I right away. Look what just happened.
It was beautiful.
Yes.
I have pictures of it if you guys want to see
Yeah.
later of the rainbows on the park. So
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah, and one thing I love about Shannon has taught me, just by observing her work, how to do a background that's not, doesn't get too technical, but just has a great hint of what's behind there. And you can see it here on Maple Wing. She just has a really good way of diffusing the light. And so that's just something I've learned just by looking at your work, and it's behind you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. I learned so much about color.
There's a lot of color on
Color
that wall.
and shadow and light, and yes. I think you taught me to take risks in ways. You've developed my color palette in a way that I wouldn't have if I wasn't looking at your work and learning from you, for sure.
Awesome.